Hello, and welcome back to my Midlife Capers. We are getting into part 4 of the 10-part series on the writing process. Today, I want to talk a little bit about research. It doesn't matter what genre you're in, you're going to have to do some research at some point on your topic. That might be because you're writing a period piece and you need to research the historical events that happened and what the culture was like during that time, the types of resources they had available, the kind of language they used, colloquialisms, and that kind of thing. Or maybe if you're doing a business book, researching maybe a little bit of the history of that particular field and how it's evolved, where it is now, and the types of philosophies and operational principles that are in place at this time. Or maybe you're doing a self help book and you have topics that you've developed, but you need some things to supplement or reinforce your position on things, or examples that you're offering a counter narrative to. And all of that's going to involve research. Even just looking for pithy quotes that go along with whatever you're writing, you're going to have to look for those. So research can feel very daunting as you're getting into the writing process. And it's really easy to get in the weeds on it and focus all on your research and never actually get to the writing part of it. And so there are a lot of different obstacles that you can encounter when you're getting into research. And my first recommendation is to take your outline that we've already talked about, that you're where you're mapping out the structure of your book, and then take a separate page to pinpoint the areas where you're going to have to do research on a particular topic or on a point that you're trying to make, and get really organized about that and know what tools you want to use for your research, whether you're going to do it all online, if you're going to go to a library, if you're going to go to experts and see what they've written, that kind of thing. Have all of that mapped out ahead of time before you dive in, because it will give you a roadmap for that process. And if you just jump in blindly, you're going to be bouncing around all over the place, and you might miss some things that you need to do research on, or you might miss an opportunity or a place to find information because you aren't giving yourself some kind of a structure to go into it. And it may have been a very long time since you've had to do a research paper, but if it hasn't been, or if you just remember what that was like, you can call on that experience to help you with your writing research process. That said, I do think that it's important to give yourself grace and latitude, because you're not going to know everything that you need to research as you start out. Sometimes that's because you take yourself down a tangent that you didn't realize is going to really add something to what you're trying to say. Sometimes in the course of doing research, you're going to uncover things that either change what you want to say on the topic, or you'll discover that there's more that you can incorporate into what you are writing about. A good example of this is that I've been ghostwriting a novel series for a client, and it deals a lot with fictional science or fictionalized science. And I distinguish that from science fiction because most people, when you hear science fiction, you think Star Trek and aliens and that kind of thing. But what we're doing in this, while it does involve some space travel, most of it is just looking at what kind of science exists right now and what are some of the problems that can come out of going too far in it. The idea is, just because we can, does that really mean that we should? And that's nowhere more relevant than in the field of science. Um, and so what we're doing is not, you know, I don't have to do a ton of research on the actual science, like I'm writing a science scholarly paper, but I need to have an understanding of what exists and what the potential is for the uses and abuses of it. And but it covers politics and several other uh, pretty relevant hot topics. And so as I was writing, and I had done a great deal of research, and I actually had a research assistant on it because there was so much that we were covering, and some of it was out of my wheelhouse. And so I needed help with kind of bullet pointing or nutshelling some of the topics so that I wasn't getting into the weeds on the research and then never actually getting to writing the story. But as I went along and as the story evolved and some of the characters did different things and some things that I hadn't planned emerged in the course of telling this story, I discovered that there were other things that I needed to know about that I didn't know at the outset. You know, I may have known that I needed to research various types of ships that were available and what kind of waterways they could travel on. But then in the course of it, I also needed to know, what types of crates cargo is shipped in and that kind of thing. And that wasn't something that I anticipated. So, there are a variety of different things that can come up in the course of doing research. And so you need to allow yourself room and flexibility to be able to cover your bases without getting overwhelmed. And I will say that especially with fiction, you have a little bit more wiggle room in kind of not being entirely factually accurate because, for example, in this novel series that I've been writing about, there was a scene with a military interdiction, and there were, some different aspects of that if I had been to the letter accurate in it wouldn't have been very interesting to read. So I played a little with those details and maybe added a little bit more excitement and intrigue in it. But at the same time, I still wanted to be basically within the realm of what was accurate. Like, I want to make sure I was using the right types of weaponry and had an understanding of how that worked. If one particular rifle had more of a kick than another, and things like that, because they help color the story I'm telling. But at the same time, if it was going to take away from the immersion into the drama, I might have fudged a little on that. And that's the liberty you have in fiction that you don't have in nonfiction when you are doing research and incorporating real world stuff into a fictional story or a fictional world that you're creating. And so there aren't hard and fast rules about it, other than if you are quoting from someone's published material, you definitely have to make sure that you're giving proper attribution for that. Fiction, it's a little bit more challenging on how to and where to place that kind of annotation, but you can figure out a way to do that. Copyright page is a great spot to do that, or in acknowledgments and that kind of thing, so that you're not disrupting the actual flow of your story. But in nonfiction, you absolutely have to make sure that you are giving proper attribution for any piece of research that you include in your work, so that the reader knows that this part is not your original content. But other than that, again, bottom line is be organized and ask for help if you need it. There are a lot of people who are willing to lend their expertise just because they're interested in your project and want to help you out. um, and a simple acknowledgement in the book is sufficient. Occasionally, you might have to pay for someone's expertise to have them read it and read your whole book and say, okay, well, you got these things right, you got these things wrong, and here's how you fix them. But there's a lot of ways to work around that and rely on relationships you have with people who might work in a specific field before you start going to pay for somebody. But anyway, I hope you have found this helpful, and good luck on your research in your own project. Talk to you later.